And when you are ready, bring yourself back to the room and prepare yourself to listen to a nice talk on gratitude. I just think that's such a wonderful way to start our Thanksgiving week. I did post this meditation on my blog, and I welcome you to, go to the blog, print it out. If you haven't ever been to the blog, you can go to White Mountain's website and scroll down to the bottom of the first page and click, and it'll take you right there. So here we are, a year later, entering Thanksgiving week. It is a time to think about right human relations, something that most people don't really connect, with Thanksgiving. Typically we are, if we're the chef of the family, we're very busy ordering turkeys and planning a menu and making sure everybody's going to be happy, and so we have more food than we'll ever eat that day because everybody has different preferences. But this is today's talk, and ideas in the talk are going to present new concepts to think about. And this is why I'm talking about the whole of Thanksgiving week, not just the day of Thanksgiving. To start with thinking about right human relations, especially regarding our family members and our relationship with the group, and also the country that we live in. And then we can expand that to all of humanity. We can be thinking about the right human relations, on these various levels for this whole week. Like everything, ideas and concepts progress as we live a transformational life. So learning how to be grateful is part of this process. And I think that as we take time to really review gratitude, and like, for example, on the blog, I posted a reply that it was really kind of cathartic about about an experience I had as a kid in which I was, so self-centered, it's pitiful. And, as all good teenagers seem to be, well, there are exceptions, but I wasn't. And so I'll go ahead and tell the story, even though you probably have read it if you're on the blog. But I was getting ready to go to college. I was majoring in music and specializing in violin performance. And so I needed another violin. The one I had was great for high school, but not for, going into performance. So at Christmas time, it was around this time of year, unbeknownst to me, Mom and Dad hired my violin teacher to go to Chicago to pick out a violin that was made or handcrafted by, at the time, one of the better violin makers in this country, and his name was Charles Becker. And so the violin teacher, flew over to Chicago and spent days playing all these violins and picking out, deciding, what he thought was the best one. And brought it back, and at Christmas time, here it is under the tree. And all I could see when I opened up this present was an orange violin. And being the little snot that I was, I said, "Ooh, what is this?" Well, over the years, I've been so sorry for Mom and Dad what they had to put up with me, but it was a tremendous lesson, and realizing all that they sacrificed and what they did, to give me the best violin. And then when I read in one of the books written by Helena Blavatsky talking about the red violin. I have an orange violin. That's so great. But through all those years, even moving to Prescott when I finally had to sell the violin to support me for a few years, I really learned gratitude and how gratitude expands and builds on itself, and it helped me become more aware of people who sacrifice, particularly moms and dads and family members, sacrifice themselves, their own personal wishes and desires to bring about the joy of others. So it was a continuing learning experience. So Thanksgiving week is a time, to remember things, that events like that really touched our heart, and then to pass it on. So Thanksgiving Day today, in today's society, is now a time to meet with each other in the spirit of gratitude, in the spirit of appreciation, and in respect. And with one more addition, and this is what I found in the teaching as I was reading about gratitude and Thanksgiving, and it really caught my eye. And I think perhaps you might feel the way I did as I read it, to meet each other with a spirit of future visions. And that was a new concept for me. I never really thought about it. So next year, for Thanksgiving, I'm going to be talking about gratitude and future visions. Yeah, I think it'll be fun to think about it this year. But not future visions just for our family and group and nation, but for all of humanity. Can we engage in this exercise this week? As we celebrate Thanksgiving Day this week, can we meet in the spirit of gratitude, in the spirit of appreciation and respect for future visions? I think we can all agree that on Thanksgiving Day, there is something really beautiful in the air around us and within us. It's almost, for me, it's like a launching into the holy days of Christmas and the winter solstice, and then preparing us for the new year. How are we going to enter into the new year? Thoughts and emotions during this time of year especially are energetic. When millions of people think and feel along the same lines of gratitude, we believe that they can even change the weather. And also the inner psychology of others. So this is something we want to not just fantasize about and weave nonsensical stories, but to really factually observe and then to record, to substantiate what the teaching is telling us. Thanksgiving Day is a day in which we must take special care of each other without expectation or subtle hypocrisy or falseness, which we see so much in today's families' celebration when they come together. This is why wine flows profusely and, other alcoholic beverages. The minute you walk into the house, you give them your bottle of special wine and say, let's open it up and celebrate. It's just to get through that, that dinner of many people. So here we are now, we're being challenged to take special care of each other without expectations, without subtle hypocrisy or falseness. We advance on the spiritual path only when we begin to really care for others. A number of years ago, I was invited to enjoy Thanksgiving Day with my teacher and mentor, Torkim Serdarian. It was the most incredible experience, for we all, family and friends, sat down together in a true atmosphere of love and gratitude. Of course, I was in bliss, for to be invited to share Thanksgiving with Torkim was an extraordinary and uncommon gift. He talked to us about the American tradition, him being an Armenian. You know, he talked to us about the American tradition of cooking a turkey, which he didn't quite understand. So we all, jumped in to educate our teacher. Yet he has such gratitude for our coming together. He talked about his wife, Joanne, how she got up very early that morning, around 4 o'clock in the morning, to start cooking the turkey and getting the house ready for their guests. He spoke about her with deep respect and gratitude. After the dinner was over, we all retired to the living room, where he talked to us and shared many stories about his life, and of course talked about the importance of gratitude. It was a very cold day. In fact, it had snowed, so there was a beautiful fire in the fireplace. Remember back when it snowed in Arizona? Right. So there was a beautiful fire in the fireplace, which added to the cozy and loving atmosphere. He talked about family. He said that when members of a family do not care for each other, the disintegration of that family is very close at hand. The same is true, he said, with groups and nations, and even humanity as a whole. He felt the causes of disintegration of a family and group are due to the hearts of people. He said that once the heart becomes careless, it no longer communicates with the forces of nature, and the person creates a certain imbalance between him and nature, between himself and the life. Imagine sitting in that living room with him talking like that. I mean, you could hear a pin drop. The energies, the tension, the spiritual tension of the energies in that room were incredible, and you could hear the crackling of the fire, in the fireplace. By this time, it was around 7 o'clock at night, so it was cold, and it was windy outside, all these things, that I'm remembering, and it was such a remarkable experience. This is what he said about a careless heart. There was a phrase that was a surprise to me. I hadn't, thought about a careless heart. But he said a careless heart cannot receive right direction from higher sources, and as a result will lose the path of life. That carelessness makes a person disintegrate within himself, which results in many difficulties and calamities. There's so much, if we were just sitting in a classroom situation, we could talk about this. For example, how important and fragile the nature of one's heart is, and how we as spiritual people need to safeguard each other's heart nature. Even when they're coming after us, when they're attacking us, when they dislike us, extremely dislike us, there's something in that heart nature of that person that has already begun disintegration. Whatever occurred, maybe some situation occurred when they were a child, and that situation, like a magnet, began, drawing more and more difficulties to them until, particularly for women, where they just become cold. and that heart nature, the petals of the heart shut down. And our responsibility, I think, for those of us that are living the transformational life, we can't change ourselves without helping others to transform as well. So when, as difficult as it is, and sometimes our reactionary nature wants to pop back, you know. I'm speaking from experience. You could tell that we have to collect our senses and say, wait, you know, this is not who I am. You know, this person is suffering in ways that, and reasons I don't know about. But while they are attacking you, you must send love, somehow love and compassion and joy. And we do that by our thoughts and by our energy and through the practice of virtues, you know, understanding. Sometimes we must walk away. You know, I'm not being a Pollyanna here. Sometimes we must walk away, but if we walk away from that situation, we walk away with grace and with virtue. We don't walk away with anger, you know, or hatred, which is so common today. Anyway, since that wonderful Thanksgiving Day, I've observed many more Thanksgivings and have learned a lot about his insights. So Thanksgiving Day is a day in which the restoration of the heart can take place in the joy of gratitude and in the joy of caringness. For example, it is a day in which we can express our gratitude to those who give, starting with our family members and then those givers who are doing a noble service. I remember a dear friend of mine who said, you know, I don't honor any human being in the world except philanthropists. Isn't that an interesting statement? And so I've become, you know, acquainted with some philanthropists just because I wanted to know, why would he say this? You know, such a dramatic statement, and it was a dramatic statement. Well, true philanthropists are here to help others. You know, they've been blessed with a financial system where they can share their generosity and serve. You know, we think of the Bill Gates Foundation and Clinton's, what is it, Bill Clinton's? Global Initiatives, which is, you know, amazing. But then there are those unsung philanthropists that, you know, they're not on CNN News. And our group is blessed to know and to be the recipient of some of these philanthropists. So I've learned to really value, you know, philanthropists because they give without strings, you know, without emotional strings. So not only must we express our gratitude to our family, but those givers who are doing a noble service. Each Thanksgiving, I light a candle, and on a piece of paper, I list the names of those over the history of our group, the White Mountain Educational Group, who have given so generously of their time and energy and talents. It is through their many efforts, oftentimes efforts that occurred behind the scenes, that took place, that the group has been able to sustain itself. For example, times in which they immediately responded to the needs of the group without being asked, or times in which they received higher guidance to engage in a sacrificial service, and they did so without question. You know, hierarchy oftentimes inspires us to do this and that. But if we're stuck in the concrete mind, then we're going to, it's like sitting down and saying, okay, if I do this, then this is going to happen. If I do that, I can't possibly. And we go through this whole litany of questions that by the time we get to the summation, our response is, later. I can't do it. It's ridiculous. It doesn't make sense. But I really believe that those that respond without question, and they know that it's higher guidance, what they give to others will multiply tenfold. And these are the ones that have abundance in their life. So on this day of Thanksgiving, the candle stays lit all day long in gratitude for the names I have placed on the list, whether they are here now or in spirit. And even if in spirit, we know that their hearts are connected with us. I know several of you have lost loved ones this year, those who were significant to your life. You can light a candle for them. Place their name on a piece of paper and say a prayer for them as you light the candle. Let them know how much you love them and how grateful you are for all they did for you, for the many sacrifices they did for you and for others. People must share their money, their time, their energy, their talents, their wisdom, and their beauty. They must eventually give all these things without expectation of any kind from those who receive. The sign of spiritual progress is givingness. Isn't that interesting? The sign of spiritual progress is givingness. And it is through the accumulated power of givingness that great steps of advancement are taken on the path of evolution. I was thinking about a story a pastor that shared fairly recently that I read about, and I was so touched. A small church congregation was in trouble. They had a commitment to start construction on their sanctuary, and that commitment took place the next day. But they didn't have the money to fulfill the initial payment of the commitment. Something had happened and they lost all their money, and so they called a sister church and said, we're in trouble. We need $200,000 to start the building, of our sanctuary. Can you help us? And the pastor said he nearly passed out. And he said, well, let me think about it, let me pray on it, and I'll get back to you. And then he did, and he received inspired guidance. And he said it would defy all rationality, all logic, to take $200,000 out of the account to help another church get started, build their sanctuary. But he did it. I know. It just amazed me, and this is probably one of the wealthiest churches now. And they weren't back then. They had 90 members in their congregation at the time. Givingness. So their blessings of abundance multiplied tremendously. So people must share their money, their time, their energy, their talents, their wisdom, and their beauty. This is what we are about. And eventually give all these things without expectation of any kind from those who receive. Here's a story. One day a young man was visiting a temple in Asia. He saw a golden statue of Buddha wearing a necklace of diamonds. The guide that had taken this young man and a small group of students to the temple pointed to the necklace and said, wouldn't it be wonderful to be a necklace and be so close to the eternal sage? Now imagine. The boy thought the guide meant that it was wonderful to be very close to the heart and throat center of Buddha. The guide asked the boy, who do you think are these beads on the necklace? You can imagine the guide was a teacher to ask a question like that, right? The boy imagined they were Buddha's beloved and closest disciples. Now the guide, after a long pause, said, "Each bead, each diamond is a giver who renounced all. He gave all and he became a diamond self, pure and beautiful." Isn't that remarkable? Very remarkable. Okay, here are some points that we can celebrate for Thanksgiving week. The first is that Thanksgiving week can be a day for intensive research in the science of giving. Well, I wouldn't limit it to a week. You know, this is something we can research over the years, particularly when we are in need, when we find our bank account underdeposited and our savings account at zero. This is a time to start researching what does giving, the science of giving, mean from a spiritual point of view, but also a scientific point of view. So that's to be engaged in intensive research in the science of giving is one. Number two, it is a day in which we can learn to appreciate each other's beauty without envy. Beauty is a great gift, not only to those who have it, but also those who behold it or enjoy it. Not everybody embraces beauty. Not everybody even knows how to enjoy beauty. But I think we can watch our children. You know, I think our children, age 1, 2, and 3 particularly, show us. You know, they go to a tree and they hug the tree. You know, or they, during the fall when the leaves drop off of the trees, and they'll pick up a leaf and take it to mommy and daddy and say, "Look at the colors." Or you know the inevitable story, they go to the next door neighbor's garden and they pick the flowers and run home. "Here, mommy, this is for you. It's so beautiful." I love, you know, mom says, "Where did you get that?" And then we have to go back next door. But anyway, our children truly are beholders of beauty and love beauty and appreciate beauty. So we can be like little children in that regard. Oh, that was my iPad. Okay. Number 3, we can celebrate Thanksgiving Day by making a day of contemplation. The first thing we can contemplate upon is, what blessings did we receive from others, and how can we pay them back? And the next, on Thanksgiving Day, we must remember those who have shared their blessings with us. When this is done, a network of electrical webs of gratitude will be built that will protect you from many evils. Sometimes, for various reasons, it is impossible to share our blessings with those from whom we've received. But this does not matter. The teachings say we can carry on those blessings by simply giving it to a stranger. The other day I was in a parking lot down by Walmart, and I was sitting in the car thinking of what I had to do next. And as I was looking out the windshield, I saw a very bedraggled-looking woman sitting in a wheelchair with the cardboard sign, you know, "I need help." And I thought, you know, I'm not going to let my concrete mind interfere with this. I'm just going to go help her. And I went over and gave her a $20 bill. This woman was so grateful, I was embarrassed. You know, she said, "Oh, bless you, may God bless you. I am so grateful. You have no idea what this is going to mean. It's going to make such a difference for my family, Thanksgiving." And Well, God bless you too, and I drove away. I hadn't expected that. And this morning, this is a silly little example, but this morning as I went in to get my drive-in to get my Starbucks, latte, I decided to, pay for the driver behind me. And you know why I did that? It triggered it for whatever at that moment. I remember like 2 weeks ago, someone did that for me for no reason. And the irony of it is that the barista said, this woman in the car waited and waited and waited until another car drove up so she could pass on, her blessing by, paying for another's drink. So I thought about that and I thought, okay, now's the time to pay back, So it doesn't have to be $1 million. It can be $4.50, Anyway, it's like paying it forward. So we can give to any stranger in the name of the one from whom we received. In the spiritual plane, our blessings reach the right address. They reach the one from whom you did receive. Even if you shared them with others due to conditions which made you unable to pay back directly the one who helped you. One exercise I'd like to engage in, it's really a pleasure, it's a joy, is when, like I did this morning and like the gal in the wheelchair, when I'm able to pass on what I've been blessed with, then I also send a prayer of gratitude to the one that enabled me to pass it forward. It's a wonderful experience. Depression and inflation are the result of accumulation without sharing your blessings. Abundance is the result of sharing. It's an important point to remember. Abundance is the result of sharing. The blessings of life cannot be frozen to such a degree that they cannot circulate. When a person builds a $5 million house to house himself and 3 cats and 2 dogs, and does not care about his neighbor or family or friends who may not have money to buy food, pay their bills, or a place to live in situations like that, we are going to have conditions, worldwide conditions, or local conditions, or personal conditions, which bring about inflation and depression. In sharing, we protect the security of ourselves and others. In accumulation, we lose the joy of sharing. In sharing, we protect this, I'm repeating myself, in sharing, we protect the security of ourselves and others. In accumulation, we lose the joy of sharing, and only joy, and the only joy which expands our heart and gives us vitality and strength. So this is, a little point or place of understanding as we think about gratitude and the value of gratitude and the science of gratitude. If we don't have gratitude, if we don't share our blessings with others, then we lose our vitality, we lose our strength, and become depressed and more. So one last point we must contemplate on Thanksgiving Day is how we create new fields of service where we can give of ourselves more. We must find out how we can create a new field of service in which we can give and share with others our talents, our beauty, our money, our wisdom, our strength, and other possessions. Of course, we do this within the group, which enables those who want to become engaged in a new field to volunteer their time in a new service to meet a group need. But there is so much available to us. You can, for example, regularly help elderly people. We can give a few hours a day or one day a month for some service to those in need. A few years ago, I decided to do just that, and I offered pastoral services to some local nursing homes as a way to create a new field of service. So I did this for 2 years. Once a month, I would go to 2 different nursing homes, taking time to visit each residence. I would eat lunch with them and then hold a communion service. It was difficult, but ultimately it was a resulting rewarding experience in surprising ways. I learned about what it means to be alone and old and feeble, and in poor health. It was difficult because so many residents were lonely and depressed and suffering in various ways. Rewarding because it increased my compassion for the aged. Realizing how this country devalues, that's not my iPad. I don't know whose it is. Anyway, sorry, interrupting it's a distraction. So rewarding because it increased my compassion for the aged, realizing how this country devalues the elderly. It taught me a new respect for the elderly. So the point is this: try to create a field in which you serve others to express your gratitude to life. Once a sage was asked how one would know that he was giving the right amount. I thought it was a very important point to make. He said, and I had not expected this answer, he said, "You will know it is enough if it hurts you." Really. And he added, "Remember the gift of the widow in the New Testament." Jesus sat down opposite the place where the offerings were put and watched the crowd putting their money into the temple treasury. Many rich people threw in large amounts, but a poor widow came and put in 2 very small copper coins, worth only a few cents. Calling his disciples to him, Christ said, "Truly, I tell you, this poor widow has put more into their treasury than all the others. They all gave out their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in everything, all that she had to live on." There was a woman who once gave this group $10,000. We were so joyful because we were so poor. Then a few weeks later, she began to dictate things that the group must do for her and began making us all miserable. So I returned the money to her, telling her that we could not possibly meet her demands. She gave with false intention. On another occasion, a girl brought $50 and gave it to our center, and I asked her how she had gotten the money. With a smile, she said, "I saved it by not going to the movies." This for me was a real giving. Okay, I think I can finish this. We may run 2 minutes over. One more point we can contemplate on Thanksgiving Day is how the hands of those who are working to spread beauty, goodness, righteousness, joy, freedom, and unity be strengthened. At the time of Thanksgiving, we must think about those who are trying to spread these qualities, because without such people, our planet would sink into profound darkness and crime. One of the first signs of spirituality for me is cooperation. Cooperation with those who are dedicated to these qualities. We must encourage them with our money, our time, our talents, and labor, and show them our gratitude for the great work they are doing for us. When we count the blessings we have and cultivate the spirit of gratitude, eventually our whole year will become a day of thanksgiving for us. If we continue to be grateful and fill our spirits with gratitude, our lives will be the lives of thanksgiving. Only through gratitude do we lay the foundations of health and peace for our future generations. So it gives us a lot to think about this week. You know, it doesn't take away from the original cause of Thanksgiving Day, you know, in this country, but it expands it, you know, to a universal level.